Good morning, listener. Jalf, you're on mute.
Good morning, Ammar.
Hey, how are we doing?
Yes, good. How are you?
Wonderful. Good morning, listeners. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
Each week we're bringing some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we'll be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops where they look to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business. We can help.
We can help. We can help. And we do help. Gosh, Jalf, 1st of October. Bless you.
Excuse me. It certainly is. And the year's just flying. Next thing you know, we're going to be in December and we're going to be in 2022. Unbelievable.
Certainly is. It certainly is. I'm just looking at our agenda for this morning, Jalf. It's it was great to have Colin on last week. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really interesting to see what he's doing and what the LEP is doing.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just adjusting something, realizing that power wasn't plugged in effectively, which is always a concern. So people worry about Wi-Fi, but actually Wi-Fi is pointless if you don't have power, Jalf.
Of course, power is the most critical thing. And do you think there's going to be an issue with power moving forward with all the price increases going up?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think there is. And I because they've all gone up, haven't they? It's almost a perfect storm.
Wow. I think you would create a perfect storm. I think, you know, there's opportunities for everyone to jump on the bandwagon. I had a interesting message from someone yesterday, and they said that, like all products, there is a shelf life of a you know, like a best before date.
Oh, you're talking about fuel.
Yeah.
About fuel. Yeah, that was, yeah. As in, you know, petrol will expire. So one way of you know, making sure that petrol is used up is to facilitate a crisis. But actually, in effect, it's just another conspiracy, isn't it?
I think so, because the thing is, if you go and fill your tank and your petrol tank's full, okay, fine, what are you going to do with it after that? Because if you're not one that usually drives a lot, it's just going to sit in the drive and expire in your vehicle, you know. So I think those that have needed diesel and petrol, they would have just gone and got it. I mean, they might make it.
I mean, what do you normally do, Jalf? As in, what do you normally do with regards to filling your car? Do you fill it up to the top?
I would just fill it up. I would fill it up to the top. I know some people say that it affects the efficiency of your miles per gallon because you're carrying a heavier load and that kind of stuff. But I've always gone and just filled the tank and just waited for it to kind of come down to go and re-top up. So it costs about 100 quid every time I fill the tank. So interestingly, I got into a little bit of a pickle on Sunday gone, where I was going to see the in-laws for the first time in about nearly 2 years. And on a Saturday, we just didn't have the time to top up because we were both busy. On a Sunday morning, got up, went to the Redheugh Bridge, crossed the Redheugh Bridge, went to the Esso garage, and we were saying that, well, what's all the fuss about? Because there's not even one car at the petrol station. There's not even any queues or anything. So we went around the roundabout, and as we got towards the petrol station, it was all coned off, so there was no petrol whatsoever in that particular station.
Really?
Yeah. So then we came back and we were having a debate whether we go on the motorway or not. And I said to Justin, there's no way we would go on the motorway because we need to fill up before we leave the city. Because you go on the motorway and there's no petrol, what are you going to do? Just be stranded on the motorway. So basically, we then came to St. James's Park, went to the Esso garage there. There was no one there, but they were open, but there was a £30 limit. And then it did cross my mind, am I going to be cheeky here? And am I going to just fill up and pretend I didn't see it? But then I thought to myself, no, I better not do that. So I only filled up £30, and £30 only took me so far. So as I was looking to then refill, and I crossed 3-4 service stations, and they were all saying, no petrol, no petrol, no petrol. So somehow got to Birmingham, went and said hello, and immediately went on a race to go and find some more petrol. And it was the 5th petrol station that, it was the automated Morrison's one, that allowed me to get the £30. But on this occasion, I wasn't going to be just getting the £30. So I got the £30. And as soon as it got to £29.90, the petrol just stopped. So they've already done something, some software to the system. And I was like, wow. So then what I had to do was, I had to just put in another card. Not that this is not illegal, it was just rules that they had. And obviously you can still top up to, so I had to be a little bit savvy. And I had to fill it twice with 2 different cards, because otherwise I would have been stuck in Birmingham. And it's just a nightmare that, I don't know if that's slowed down and if that's eased and it's gone back to any type of normality. But it's been an absolute nightmare, amount of disruption it's caused everybody. I think that if it continued for another week or two or more, then I think the country would be at a standstill. If you imagine all of the delivery drivers doing takeaways and doing food, and the HGV drivers and the supplies and all of that stuff, I mean, the country would stop.
Well, it was, potentially at a significant crisis in any event, which was interesting. But yeah, you're right. I think another week of it would have caused issues. It was clearly headline news. I mean, look, it's scaremongering. You're going to run out of toilet paper, so everybody runs out and buys toilet paper, right? Whether they need it or not. Because as an individual, you don't want to run out of toilet paper, do you? Is the thing. So if someone says this is a scarcity, or there's a challenge with the resource of it or the supply of it, it's going to cause an issue. So someone turning around, it's a great way to increase fuel sales. Interestingly, there were certain outlets, so petrol stations that appeared to have fuel consistently. I went to one and it was that £30 limit, and I was like, but it was controlled manually, so they were expecting anyway, do you not need a pen and a piece of paper to write something down, as opposed to like,
it's all right, sign language?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
They were doing it manually, and they were expecting people to just not fill up over £30. I didn't know there was a £30 limit, so it let me get to £31.87. When I went in there, I said, is there a limit? She says, yeah, £30. I says, well, so does that mean I get the £1.87 for free? Anyway.
And I said, well, if you want to take the excess petrol out of the car, madam, you can feel free to do so.
Yeah, I did say that actually. But it in a light-hearted way, because you can just see, I mean, there was people filling up like the most ridiculous of utensils. as in it was bottles and this and that, and it's downright dangerous. What do you think you're putting petrol in?
That's
So
ridiculous.
anyway, that was interesting, Jaff, and certainly it would have been a bit concerning. I mean, I'm off to Leeds this weekend to officially accept my appointment as colonel.
Oh, excellent.
And
You getting the train?
And actually, I'm getting the train.
Okay, good.
I just thought to myself, at the time of booking, it was there is no certainty that I'd be able to get down there and back on a tank of fuel. So I've booked the train, and that's that. So
well, it's much more. I mean, the trains are comfortable. They're not as busy as what they used to be, Ammar. I think so. It's probably the best way to go, and you can get your work done on the way. And it's kind of, I think I think it's the best way to travel.
I must admit, I am a huge fan of the train. I've become really tired of driving, and it's quite interesting because at one point, I remember driving down to London and back, like literally.
Oh yeah,
it was like
it was a regular thing.
You would just drive everywhere and anywhere, and from my point of view, it's the most convenient way to travel is a train. The fact that you can sit there, you can do some work, you can do whatever, and anyway, yeah, it is, and the fuel crisis has clearly brought that to the fore a little bit. If you remember, Jeff, last week I was slightly under the weather, and that has continued for some of this week as trying to shift what you could normally describe as a common cold has become so much more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
People getting viruses, people picking up bugs and flus and things like that. I don't know how whether you've had any experience of that, Jeff.
Thankfully I haven't, so I'm not counting my chickens though, because it's a season where anyone can get anything at any moment. So I think we expect it, Ammar, and even in the workplace, you expect people to go down. I usually send messages when the weather turns that please wrap up, wear a scarf, be extra careful, because we want every one of our staff members to be extra careful and cautious. And when you're in an environment where people are kind of dining and anyone can bring anything in. But I have noticed though that people aren't coughing and sneezing in restaurants anything like what they used to do. Because ordinarily, let's say 2 years ago before Corona, if you had a cough or a cold, that wouldn't stop you from going into a restaurant. And you wouldn't think, oh my God, you've got a cold, what are you doing here? So coughing, even amongst members of staff before Corona, it would be, if they had a little bit of a cough, you would ask them to come into work, because you think, hold on, you can't just miss work for a little bit of a cough, or you've got the sneezes, you got, so if it was severe, yes, of course, but if it was just gentle, you wouldn't. So I think people are definitely a lot more cautious, for sure. I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen too many people coughing and sneezing, and if they do, you kind of mark it, and then you kind of make sure that you automatically keep a little bit of a distance, so the vapor from the sneezes kind of evaporates away, and you're not kind of walking into it. So, but I do envisage there to be that season that's ahead. I think it's going to be a one that we need to just be very, very careful around, and hopefully we get through it, and everyone, and as a nation, we get through it without there having to be any more lockdowns, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and that is probably one of the biggest challenges, right?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, but Ammar, but I know people now that they're getting the boosters already, and that's people in their 30s. So the boosters is that now available to everybody? Because apparently the concept of the booster is that, because we were speaking to a doctor within the family, and we asked, well, hold on, you've got the booster, why did you do it for? And they said that, well, because the shelf life or the impact or the effect of the 2 doses of the vaccine that person had, they said that it's come to an end. So then you have to have the booster so that you're then so that's then kind of, you know, boosting whatever is coming to the impact's coming to an end within your body. So the vaccines that everyone's taking. So if you don't have the booster, are you then effectively unvaccinated then?
Well, the suggestion is that the protection from the virus reduces over a period of time, not dissimilar to the flu jab and things like that. Jeff?
Yeah, of course.
So,
of course, I'm understanding that, but I'm just saying that. But if the protection ends, but are you effectively unvaccinated?
don't know is the honest answer.
So, I mean, let's say that there's just on the news before, and if you want to enter into a nightclub, you need to show the certification that you've been vaccinated. But if you've been vaccinated twice and your shelf life has come to an end, or the protection has come to an end because you haven't had the booster, that means effectively you're unvaccinated. So that the certificate doesn't really hold much weight unless you've got the booster. Is there like a deadline? Is it 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or 120 days after you've had the second dose of the vaccine that the protection ends? I mean, is that I don't think that's been kind of clarified neither. So there's a lot of things that we all need to get our heads around. But if that booster is gonna help in the season that's coming ahead, then maybe is that something that might make the winter easier. But either way, I think it's a very critical time for the nation. I think the next 3 months, how we get through the next 3 months.
Undoubtedly. You know, we still live in a world of so many unknowns. Jeff, is the thing. Anyway, let's move on to the business topic of the week. This week, Jeff. Business topic of the week. Marketing.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. This is your bag, isn't it? Can you remember some of the methodologies and the principles that you learned, John?
Yeah, some of them, like, you know, Kotler's 4 Ps, product place. I can't even remember all of them, to be honest. But yeah, I think I've been doing interviews this week, Ammar, so unfortunately I couldn't see you when you came in or even get to your phone calls because I've had back-to-back interviews. And interestingly, I had a number of interviews and they were with marketing students who were doing management as well.
Right.
And I tried to kind of explain the restaurant from a marketing perspective, just trying to connect with them a little bit better. And I think one of the key messages, just to answer your question, all the methodologies that they come up with, it's all interesting, it makes sense. But I think the most critical thing of any marketing student or anyone studying marketing is to try and relay that to the real world, because in the real world, it's very slightly different. And if you can relay what you study in a real world as quickly as possible, I think that gives you an edge and an advantage.
Storytelling, Jalf, is the single most significant way of being able to sell a product or service.
Yeah.
Right? Because throughout time, storytelling has been the most consistent approach to communication. So from cavemen days, where they were drawing stories of chasing animals and killing them and eating them, to dinosaurs and all of those things, through to religious context. So yeah, every single religion is based on the premise of sharing and telling stories. And now the best way to communicate and engage with people is to tell a story, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, your story is your concept.
Yeah. So anyway, the connection marketing has with customer behavior. The relationship between marketing and customer behavior
it's critical.
Has always been a topic of debate. You may be wondering, how does advertising affect my customers? It is an important question to ask because it can have a significant effect on your business success. A study by the Journal of Advertising Research found that emotional connections are built through marketing campaigns, which in turn improve trust with consumers and lead to brand familiarity. These three factors are crucial for improving customer behavior. So let's take a closer look at what this means for you as an entrepreneur, business owner, marketeer, or just somebody who's interested. Trust is essential in the marketing industry. We all know that consumers are more likely to buy from a brand they trust, which means companies need to build this relationship with their customers. This can be done through many ways, including transparent communication and offering high quality products or services. One study found that 4 out of 5 people said it was important that brands were transparent with their customers. Now that you understand the importance of trust in marketing, let's take a look at how it relates to consumer behavior. For example, when consumers share positive things about your business online, such as social media, this also builds trust and improves customer loyalty. Furthermore, if they believe you are committed to providing a positive and transparent experience, they will be more likely to buy from your company again. The second factor we mentioned was brand familiarity. According to research by the Journal of Marketing Management, building brand familiarity is key for driving sales growth in small business because it encourages customers, retention, and loyalty. Customers who feel familiar with a brand are more likely to buy its products or services than those who do not. This is especially important because 91% of customers stop buying from a company after just one bad experience, which means building familiarity with your brand can help you retain these customers if they have problems in the future. To create this sense of familiarity, it's crucial that companies make their customers feel like they know the business. One way to do this is by providing interesting and compelling content on your company blog or social media channels, which will encourage them to become more familiar with you as a brand. If people enjoy reading about what's new in your industry, they are likely to consider doing business with you because it makes them feel as if they know who you or as a company. Finally, let's take a look at the third factor of emotional connection. A study by Marketing Science found that consumers feel emotionally connected to brands when their values align with those of the business. For example, if both companies share similar environmental views or support local communities in some way, when customers feel a personal connection with your business, they are more likely to buy from you because it appeals to their emotions and makes them feel good. The relationship between marketing and customer behavior is an important one for business owners to consider when building out campaigns. By having a better understanding of how advertising affects customers, you can be sure that the products or services you offer will appeal to them and help you grow your business. Where can you find out more about this? Well, the SME blog and newsletter is where you can find out more. So, emotional connection, Jalf.
It's very, very critical.
And you get that emotional connection from storytelling, right?
Of course, and I think as you understand how the big companies do it, it's like you said, Ammar, it's all about stories. I've often told the stories of Frankie and Benny's, which is so brilliant, how they tell their stories, and Nando's. You know, you just believe in everything that they tell you. You know, the peri peri, the Portuguese thing, and all of those things. So storytelling is just so critical, and like I said, that is what people connect to. And that's the fundamental basis of everything else. Once you've got your story correct, you then, your interiors, your graphics, your everything else, the look and feel of the shop or the office, or whether it's a pub, a bar, a restaurant, whether it's chocolatiers, that becomes the foundation of everything else.
Undoubtedly. So bringing things to life. So you've heard of Pixar, right?
Pixar?
Yeah.
Not really. Pixels?
Yeah.
Similar to Pixels?
No. So Pixar are one of the biggest and best movie makers in the world.
All right, okay.
They make primarily animated movies. So for kids, like Monsters, Inc. Can you remember Monsters, Inc.?
All right.
Are you familiar with it?
I remember Monster Munch.
Yeah, that's still around. So Pixar Films, it's a film animation studio. You probably don't, in which case the likelihood is you don't know any of the movies. What about Finding Dory? Does that ring a bell?
No.
What about Cars?
Cars.
Yeah. All right. Let me do you a favor. I will share my screen. Can you see this?
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
these are their movies. And
all right.
Any of these ring a bell?
Toy Story.
Toy Story?
Yeah, Toy Story. Yeah, definitely.
Finding Dory, this fishy thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think that now that I'm seeing the the actual images, I'm a little bit more familiar. But you got to understand that I don't have any time to watch any TVs or anything.
Well, you do. That's a play. Well, you do. You always watch. You'll watch football. You'll watch certain documentaries. Anyway,
but Toy Story, definitely, for sure. I'm aware of Toy Story. I don't know when that came out back in the day. It was big, wasn't it, at the time, because it was groundbreaking.
Yeah. So the point is Pixar is one of the best storytellers in the world. They've won so many awards for all of their stories. Yet all of these stories are animated, right? So they're all what you'd say are cartoons fundamentally, like modern day cartoons is what they are. But even though they are, every single one of these stories, whether it's about monsters, whether it's about cars, whether it's about toys, is based on human emotional connection, Jaff. Right? So they have a bad character, they have a good character, they have a misfortune, they have courage, they have all of these things that human beings connect with. Monsters Inc., which is one of their most significant movies that they'd ever made. The person who wrote that had just had a baby.
Okay.
And the story that was underneath this story of a monster, because monsters go into children's bedrooms, they scare them, and one of the children came back into their universe, so they had a little child. So anyway, the point was, it was this person's way of saying, I've had a baby, and this is my relationship with that baby, and it came across in that story, and it made it the most powerfully connective and emotional stories. These movies are fantastic, regardless of whether you've got kids or not, and they're not very long. So if you get the chance to watch one of them, they will really entertain you, and they will really reinforce the approach of setting a story. So anyway, the storytelling is one way of developing that connection. So rather than when we are supporting businesses and whether they're starting or growing, the one thing that I will always encourage them to do is to connect with their customers or potential customers in a meaningful way. And that is through telling a story. So rather than we serve the best quality food and you're going to get a great experience if you come here, it's more sharing your story, Jeff. So I've been in the food industry for ever since I was a young child.
Wow.
And I've innovated, and I've always wanted to be able to set the bar and be ahead of the curve. And the food that I'm offering, we came down on Wednesday and clearly over ordered, because it was we just simply did. But when they were tasting some of the dishes, they were like, "Oh, that tastes a bit like." It looks and tastes a bit like a Thai type dish. Well, I'm going, no, it's an authentic dish from a particular part in India. It was like the chicken chili dish with the onions and the sort of chunky vegetables and the rich sauce. And people don't appreciate the authenticity and the effort that's gone into all of your menu. So being able to share that story and doing all of that, it brings it to life, right? People then go, oh my gosh, I've got a connection with that because I went to that part in India. Oh, I know somebody who was there. Oh, we took over that part of India years ago. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So that power of storytelling is quite significant. Anyway, developing an emotion with your product or service is a key and critical point. It's National Inclusion Week, Jeff.
Okay.
So it's a week where everyone feels we should be promoting inclusion. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we continue to live in a world filled with division.
I mean, probably more so than ever.
Yeah, but Asian Business Connections is, we've done so much, and we're looking forward to our dinner in a couple of weeks' time. it's mad. I'm just looking at some statistics here, Jeff, in that, the National Inclusion Week is organised, Inclusive Employers National brings over 2,000 businesses across the UK to talk about inclusion and try to create inclusion in the workplace. This year's theme for national inclusion is United for Inclusion, encouraging our teams, organisations and the country to come together to celebrate inclusion, share learning and best practice to make inclusion an everyday reality. Among the top 3 roles in any FTSE 100 company, only 10 out of 297, so less than 3%, are held by people from ethnic minority backgrounds, yet the percentage of the UK population from BME background is 12.5%.
Interesting.
Robert Moyne, Managing Director at Corporate Services Inclusive Employers, said the last year has really brought the need for inclusion into sharp focus. Many of us have spent the past 12 months working remotely, and I therefore hope that United for Inclusion, the 2021 theme of National Inclusion Week, brings us closer to our colleagues and other organisations as we come together to celebrate, share and inspire inclusion practices. One area that National Inclusion Week is particularly focusing on is inspiring unity in action for anti-racism. A massive 70%, so 7 out of 10 minority workers say they have experienced racial harassment in the workplace over the past 5 years. ABC is a not-for-profit social enterprise that aims to celebrate, promote and connect. Anyway, it aims to connect, support and promote the Asian business community with each other and with the wider community in the Northern Powerhouse area, with regular events, including our upcoming 12th anniversary awards ceremony, where we draw the entire Northeast community together to celebrate the achievements of its Asian members. ABC aims to help the Northeast become one of the most inclusive regions in the UK. What do you think about that?
Amazing. It's amazing. I think the work that's been done over the last 12 years as just a small independent social enterprise led by yourself has been phenomenal. I think without the support, without any funding, I think if it was anyone else other than yourself, Ammar, and other organizations have been there, but they've just come and gone.
Mm.
So credit,
you're right.
Credit to yourself for having that.
Yeah, but it's equally having the support of people like you, Jalf.
Well, there's lots of people, of course, that are there to support, but I think it's the drive and the determination that you've had to hold it all together over the last 12 years, and it's a really, really big deal for the city that it's still there and it's still, you know, doing its thing, and it's still got a big following, and it's able to help, like the motto, help support, promote lots and lots of different organizations and businesses and make their businesses just a tad bit better.
Yeah. James Bond is here.
Mm-hmm. And it's breaking all records, isn't it?
What do you think about that?
It's breaking all records, James Bond. I think they've taken or something. I mean, I think I'm going to wait until the cinemas ease down a bit before you go and watch it.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about going on Sunday.
Saturday night.
Well, no,
yeah.
I would have been there last night if I had thought on. I'm a huge James Bond fan. I don't know what age is it?
They're usually 15, aren't they? James Bonds. I think they're usually 15. I think I'm not really too sure, to be honest. But it was good that they were ready to go just before the pandemic, weren't they? But they just waited and waited and waited, which is actually great. great kind of strategy in so many ways, because it needs, James Bond needs to have like a global reaction to it, because it's such an iconic kind of it's such an iconic movie that they've done the right thing by doing it now, because the hype is amazing.
I think so, and I can't wait to see it, and I want to see it in the cinema, and I want cheesy nachos, and I want to like have that big screen,
Yeah.
and actually I was probably coughing a little bit. It was funny. Louise and I went to the cinemas. I can't remember when it was, but I think it was in between some unlockdown or lockdown type of environment, whenever it was, and we were sat coughing, and it was so funny, so funny. Obviously, we didn't have it, but it was like, and it was like, oh gosh, like, and it's, you're looking around, and people are looking around, and it is funny to see the impact, but I must admit, I had to be rather concerned if it was in fact somebody was sat next to me coughing and spluttering.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Oh, of course, it would be just one of those things, especially in an enclosed environment.
So, talking about, let's get back to business. How is business, Jalf? And have you had any more significant supply chain issues? Or?
I think the suppliers are touch and go. We speak to them on a regular basis. The prices keep on increasing because as the fuel, as the operators, the fuel prices have gone up. They always pass on the cost to us. We then don't pass the cost on to our customers because feel it's the right thing to do. Periodic price increases is just not the right way to go. So we usually absorb it. And I think I really do fear in the back of my mind the world that we're entering and what is going to happen, because it wouldn't surprise you if in the height of December, there's no pandemic, but there's no food to go around the country because there's some kind of another crisis. And then you have to close restaurants down. I mean, Nando's have closed because they couldn't get chicken. KFC have closed for a few days. There's still the supply chain. I think it's very, very temperamental. Coming out of Brexit, I mean, we were waiting for some, we have wet wipes that we give to every single customers. Every single table that have wet wipes, and we order 25,000 at a go, and we still, no one else does it, but we still feel that in this climate, it's still a nice thing to do after you've eaten. Cleanse your fingers, cleanse your hands instead of going and washing your hands. You're touching knives and forks and plates and this, that, and other, all the bowls, all the dishes, and they go around the table. So hence we have it, but to release them, they were sat in customs for about 4 weeks.
Why?
Because to get that custom clearance, because it's not from the UK, right? It comes from mainland Europe or wherever it comes from. But it never used to sit in customs. So everything that comes, it has to sit in customs, and you have to get customs clearance because we're outside of the EU now. So all of those things, it just cause so much disruption. It's incredible. So yeah, the disruption is there. I think at the moment, look, if this is what the world is, we'll accept the disruption. But as long as there's not a total stop to the food chain, or the disruption doesn't get worse, where at the moment it's difficult, but we're still, with a bit of extra hard work, a little bit more patience, we're still able to open up, and our customers, they're not realizing what's going on behind the scenes. We're still able to offer the service that we endeavor to offer. There's nothing on the menu that's not there, and all of those kind of things. So even though behind the scenes costs have gone up, there's delays and this, that, and other, we're doing our best to make sure it's all good. But if it's so temperamental, I just can't see us being able to hold it together, because at some point I think the supplier is going to let us down, and he's going to say that, look, I'm sorry, but the lorry or the ship of king prawns is stuck, and you can't get king prawns. We can't get it for another 10 days. So I think something like that is ahead for sure, and I don't even know how you can plan for that, Ammar, because what do you know what line is missing? You know, what product, what ingredients, which ship is it going to be?
And you're absolutely right. It doesn't take much, because I mean, look, part of the challenge is the lack of detailed preparation of being able to have a resilient supply chain. Now they're offering visas to an extra 10,000 people to come and pick, sort of farms, because farmers are really struggling. HGV drivers, we've got a distinct lack of, but it doesn't take much, does it, for that to be impacted?
Well, why would people come on a temporary visa? I think.
Well, they will. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to get paid good money, aren't they? That's the thing.
Apparently, Ammar, there's something to do that. The HGV drivers, apparently, I was speaking to somebody and they were saying it's more down to the fact that the tax laws have changed. I think they were able to do something as a self-employed, and
so IR35 has come in, so that means that you can no longer, if you work for one company, you can no longer work as self-employed.
Okay, so you can't work for a company, get paid, and then work self-employed separately. Is that what it is?
No. So let's just say I am a driver for I don't know, any of the big retailers.
Okay.
Right. So as a haulier, as a transport business, I could employ people who were self-employed, who would drive the trucks. Now, if you work for a haulier or a substantive part of your employment is with one company, so you don't have several customers, so to speak, you can no longer work self-employed.
Okay.
So you can't have a service company. Jalf is what it was. So you can't offer your services.
And that's having an impact, I'm assuming, on
anybody who's
net earnings, right?
Well, anybody who is used to be able to work. It was primarily so what used to happen, and here's an explanation of why it was introduced. What used to happen was, and it was primarily in the public sector. So someone might retire as a chief exec of a council, or a chief exec of a NHS trust, or a civil servant, right? They would retire, set up a company on their own, and come back and work for the organization as a consultant, either doing the same job or a similar job. But because you are self-employed, the way an employer is taxed is distinctly different. So if somebody is self-employed, I wouldn't be responsible for any employer national insurance, because they would give me an invoice, I would pay them, they'd be responsible for their own tax, and they'd be responsible for paying their own national insurance. So lots of people, it was felt, were abusing that system, because actually they were just employed, but it was a rouse or a guise of getting round not paying national insurance, employers national insurance, and being able to pay less tax, because if you're self-employed, you're eligible for a variety of costs that you can recover to do with your job, which you can't if you're employed. So they introduced this IR35. It was meant to come in last year, it didn't, and it's come in now. So consequently, people as you rightly point out, so they have to pay their taxes in a different way. Secondly, because you raise a very valid and legitimate point, what is going to happen, Jalf, is if I am from France or Poland or Lithuania or wherever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I come here, I work, because I'm the EU, because of the UK is no longer in the EU, I have to pay tax on my earnings here and then tax on my earnings back at my home country.
It's an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess, and you can understand why when you look at what net you're left with, and when you look at what net you're left with, you just think that actually it's not worth. And when you would just say that, no, I'd rather just stay here because I'm netting out more. It's all about how much money they can earn. People are prepared to work hard, but if they're going to leave another country, there must be some kind of, if you're going to migrate to another country, come on, there's got to be some kind of huge financial benefit for you to want to do that, and a lifestyle improvement. I think, there's so many things that need to be looked at. And this is just, everything's just fallen off a cliff. It's not like taxes where they do it step by step, or you're tackling one area one year, then doing something else in another year. I think they've just done everything's so dramatic in terms of the changes because of Brexit. The impact is just horrendous, and I don't think anyone in the government they just haven't looked at it in the correct way, and the impact that all the country's suffering so much because of poor decisions. And going back to that vote on the Brexit vote, that should never have been allowed to come into the public domain. The public don't understand how many people understood the consequences of something like this? Brexit would lead to this, and this. And if they knew it, would they have then voted for Brexit at that time? I don't think they would have done.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, we
it is what it is.
Didn't know what we didn't know, don't know what we don't know, but it can only do what we can do now, and that's part of the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so the biggest challenge now is what's going to happen with Christmas. And Jalf, I know you're continuously absorbing costs, but I'd be interested in understanding how much can you absorb. I don't mean like a number, but there will come a time when you're simply unable to absorb much more.
Yeah, I think Ammar, we have to look at our business models, and we have to try and ensure that we can look at this time as a good time. Good times, you have good times and bad times. I think at this moment in time, we're in good times. We have to make sure that our coffers are as full as possible, and you have to have some extra funds in the kitty for tomorrow, because anything can happen. And I just can't see the government helping the businesses as what they've done in the first lockdown moving ahead. I mean, if they turn around tomorrow and say that there's a lockdown, but there's no furlough support, that there's no support for the businesses, who's going to argue against that? Because have they got any money left anywhere to support anybody? So I think anyone in business, these are good times. Enjoy it, but be very, very financially prudent. Keep the coffers up, and yes, you have to absorb. But at some point, we're not going to be able to. We would have to look at our prices. That's the only way to, get through difficult times, and hopefully things will settle. Let's give it let's definitely see Christmas through and see where we are in the new year. And hopefully, we can have, as a nation, we can have a amazing Christmas, and families can get together. People can go out and have their corporate events and all the different parties that you would ordinarily. And hopefully we can go into 22 with a whole lot more positivity than what we've had over the last couple of years.
Well, it's wonderful to see the number of individuals and businesses and people going out and celebrating and doing all of that. So, it's great to see that. We're coming up to the end of the show, Jalf. We will be back next week. We're going to try and get some of the finalists from our awards on, just to talk about them and their experience and what they're looking forward to. I think, if anyone's interested in the dinner, then get them to reach out. But until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.